Welcome back, everybody, to Inking Out Loud. This will be episode 9, and today we are covering Wizardborn, aren't we?
Yeah.
This is book 3 of the Runelords, and this episode's going to be a slight bit of a deviation from our past episodes. We're not going to be doing just the first half of Wizardborn, which we've been traditionally doing up until this point. We've decided that we are going to be covering the entirety of this volume in this single podcast. So I'm joined today, of course, by Drew, who's your co-host. We have Jarrod. He's back once again.
What's up, guys?
And hi, how's it going, everybody? And I'm Rob. So it's been 2.5 weeks since we sat down and recorded the last episode.
Yeah. So
it was Warbreaker. Oh my God, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Holy crap. I thought for some reason it would have been Brotherhood of the Wolf. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I just seem to remember that one being the most recent.
We took a little break from the Runelords, and now we're diving back in. And
and we've all come back from our holidays. It's now the 2nd of January. No, it's the 1st of January.
1st of January.
So it's still technically a holiday, but you know what? We're burning the midnight oil, aren't we?
Yeah.
So is there anything you guys want to get out of the way immediately?
Yeah, so I kind of wanted to talk about what this book is and its place in the series, where it kind of has a different sort of narrative arc than Some of All Men and Brotherhood of the Wolf, where those two have kind of concrete endings established at the beginning of each book, or near the beginning of each book, where in the Some of All Men everything was pointed toward this big battle at Longmont, at Castle Longmont.
Yeah.
And we get that at the end. And then book 2, everything's pointing toward this big battle at Castle Karis, and we get that at the end. This book doesn't have that kind of defining milestone at the end. And in a lot of ways, both physically and internally with the characters, it's all about the journey in this one. And I think it's really appropriate in the actual physical copy. You know, at the front, he's got his usual map of the world, but he has some smaller maps that accompany it, and one of them is just called Reaver's Retreat, and it tracks the path the Reavers took leaving Karis. And then the next one is Borenson's Ride, and it tracks the path that Borenson goes.
Oh.
And then the final one is Raja Ten's Trail, tracking Raja Ten's path from Mystaria all the way down to Kartish. And I think that's pertinent in this book, because it really is all about the journeys that these characters take. And it's not about the destination, where the previous 2 books, Brandon Sanderson reference, whatever. But it's about the growth and the journeys, for better or for worse, because it is not always for the better with the characters changing in this book. So,
yeah, no, I agree. I didn't realize that about the actual maps that you had at the beginning of the physical copy, because I found my e-reader. Sorry, I think it was the entire second half of the book I managed to get through on text, so I retained quite a bit more this time around, but I still missed the first half of the book. That was on audiobook only, so I had no idea about these maps. I'm gonna have to check those out. I'm sure there's PDFs online. I can check them up.
Yeah. So, and one more note on the map.
Images.
So on the Raja 10 map, it has a much more detailed map of Intopal. And whereas in the previous books, we just got a couple of countries on there, and there was a typo on where there was a country called Mutes, when in the actual book, they're always referred to as Muyatin or Mutayan.
Oh?
And the country is called Mutaya. And then in this one, he kind of fixes the map and retcons it a little bit to where Mutes is now actually called Mutaya. But then all the way down in the south, where there wasn't anything on the previous maps, there's a little country also called Muyatin. So he sort of fixed that editorial mistake from the first 2 books on the map in this one.
Kind of just slid right over that one. Good for him, though. That's a nice creative solution. I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so much happening in this book in comparison to the other 2. I mean, so many moments I had reading them, and I had just straight up physical, visceral reactions to what I'm reading, like an actual physical response, whether I'm bursting out laughing, or I'm kind of just holding my hand to my mouth, holy crap, that's horrible. One scene that immediately comes to mind, of course, Well,
So
I don't know if
are
I want
we?
to spoil this right away because this is actually, I'm going to save this because this is one of my favorite scenes in the entire book. I'm going to save this until the very end before I
So do we
specifically
want to
list.
hold off on the favorite scenes
Yeah.
portion till
No,
the end?
like,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, we're definitely going to have our favorite scenes listed at the end of this podcast again. I was about to bring one of them up, just talking about these physical reactions that it got out of me. But no, you're right. That's much better saved for the end.
Yeah,
Definitely.
so well then let's kick off talking about the characters like we normally do
Sweet.
here,
Sweet,
because
sweet.
there's a lot to talk about with the characters in this book.
Yeah, especially in this book. It's a character-driven narrative,
Yeah,
much more noticeably so than the last two books.
yeah, and like
Definitely.
some of the side characters who didn't get as much page time in the first couple books get a lot more here. Averin is much more central, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, she is
Yep.
the namesake of the book, partially,
Awesome.
partially.
Yeah. Spoilers.
Yeah, spoilers. But I really like how the author here, David Farland, takes these characters that have been sort of on the edges and brings them more central to the story, and it's so compact. I mean, you think about how some other authors have done this, like George R. R. Martin in A Song of Ice and Fire, and Robert Jordan, guys who've kind of infamously taken side characters and made them more and more central, and the series just gets bloated and it drags out,
Yeah.
and you a lot of readers feel like it gets sidetracked. And in this, that doesn't happen at all. I mean, it's so fast paced, it's so tightly woven that when you have more scenes now with like Mirima and Averin and Aaron Connell and even Raja Ten, like it works seamlessly with your Iome and Gaborn and Borenson, and
Yeah, and I think that's a natural result of the fact that we have lost a few characters up to this point that were sort of central characters. Speaking
bit, yeah.
like back to book one, you have Gaborn's father, King Orden. We had Silveresta, who was another side character. Going to book two, we had Borenson Senior, who had a kind of focused narrative throughout the entire book.
Yep.
But now we have more room for these characters that we're really starting to love. And for me, I loved exploring Averin a lot more. I was totally unprepared, believe it or not, for Binisman's revelation that she is his prodigy. She is his, progeny, not prodigy. I want to use the correct word there. No, I didn't use the correct word. Jesus Christ, what's the word I'm looking for? Drew, come to my rescue.
Not progeny.
No, progeny would be related to him.
Yeah,
yes?
yeah.
Yeah, no, that's not the word I wanted to use.
Like
Padawan,
protege?
I guess.
Protege.
Protege is the word I wanted to use. Thank you very much.
There you go.
I was not ready for his revelation that she was Wizardborn,
Yeah.
and that she was going to be learning the arts from him directly. And in that chapter, I think it was chapter 9,
Yeah.
I did a little fist pump in the air. I was like, yes! I want answers. I have questions. I want answers. This is going to be
I mean,
really
I kind of expected it when she is the first one to meet Spring.
Well, so I thought it was kind of an interesting and a clever thing that he did, where the first thing that happens when she meets Spring is she gets the blood on her and in her. And so you have this question of, is Averin getting these earth powers because she has the blood of a wild in her, or is it because she's actually an Earth Warden? And we get the answer here. Yes, she's actually an Earth Warden.
Oh, I was going to say, yeah, we did get the answer to that. Yeah we did. Yeah,
So,
the whole reason Spring showed up there in the first place was because she already had this connection.
yeah, and
with Binisman specifically in the Earth.
And then we get a really good progression of her training and powers, and it's neat how she does some things very differently from Binisman, where she has capabilities that he doesn't. She can call creatures and people and summon them to herself, not always successfully. We see her fail when the one random dude just steals their horses in the middle of the town. But it of course comes to the crux of the moment where she keeps trying to eat these Reaver brains and she's getting sicker and sicker and she can't do it.
Yes.
And she's like almost gonna die, and she finds the way around it at the end of the book where she summons the Waymaker. She uses this new power.
She manages
She finally gets it under control, and she summons the Reaver she needs and reads his mind instead of having to kill and eat his brain.
Makes you wonder what would have happened if she did have to eat his brain. I mean, she was getting progressively worse and worse every time she had to do it. Would this next time have killed her? And how would that have affected Gaborn? Because he knows that even if she does succeed in eating its brains and figuring out where exactly the one true master lies, is she even going to be able to relate that information before the sickness actually kills her?
Right.
Because she came very, very close.
Yeah.
At least to insanity. I don't know about physically die, but
yeah.
Yeah.
Like her.
Yeah, I suppose.
You know, she was just getting these crazy sensations and emotions from the Reavers that she was eating, and getting their horrific agony and terror in their last moments. You know, assaulting like a 9-year-old girl.
I don't know. What I found most interesting about her was that, you know, a lot of the times when she is eating these brains, it almost ends up being like an empathetic connection that she has with the Reavers, where she's actually kind of feeling bad for them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She goes on that kind of harping on a point with Gaborn, where she's like, you're not fighting against the Reavers. You're fighting against the one true master.
It's
this
farmers.
army, like you're killing peasants right now.
You're killing peasants, you're killing farmers, you're killing craftsmen.
Yeah.
That's who you're killing. And I'm sure that's something that Gaborn up to this point really hadn't considered. I mean, these are peasants and these are farmers who are trying to eat his people, literally. But what I was just about to say a few seconds ago was, can we just take a second to stop and appreciate how disgusting the Reavers are? Like, it was every time Averin is trying to explain how the Reavers function, how they communicate, or how she's trying to communicate with them. There's always some moment where I go, ugh, that poor girl. Like, she has to go sniff its anus. It's secreting all these death screams and these death scents through its anus and stuff like that. I'm just like, oh, that's gross.
Awful, yeah.
That's just gross. I don't know.
Yeah,
I just want to take a
pretty,
second and go.
pretty horrific. They're
like,
a great invention. It's a cool fantasy creature. You know,
they're not really like your typical Trollocs or orcs. But, you know, they're just.
So just like going back to the point with Averin being Wizardborn and being an Earth Warden and developing her Earth powers throughout this, we do learn quite a lot more about how the Earth works, how the Earth powers work here, and we know, you know, we meet another. Oh wait, no, actually, sorry, that's early in the next book. But we.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, sorry.
Thanks for stopping.
Spoiler alert, everybody! It's in like chapter 1. Don't worry about it. But so anyway, we do learn, you know, each Earth Warden is given a charge, and no two Earth Wardens have the same like charge to like protect and care for. And we learn that Binisman's charge is humanity.
Specifically humanity.
He is specifically humanity, and I think that's like a cool thing, because as we're watching Averin go through this, the questions there. It's not ever asked outright, but it's left hanging. If Binisman has humanity, what is Averin doing? Like, what is her charge?
Oh, well, I hadn't considered that question, but the answer does seem kind of obvious now, doesn't it? Considering her connection with the Reavers, maybe they are a whole subset of... this is just, of course, postulation from somebody who's only read the first 3 books, but maybe the Reavers aren't the biggest threat. Dun, dun, dun. No.
Well, that's actually a good segue here. We can move to another new side character who's getting a bigger role, and that's Erin Connell, and her involvement with the Anders family.
Yes.
And we learned that there was a little more to the Darkling Glory than we thought.
Yeah, the Darkling Glory is still... I don't know. I had forgotten that it was still going to be an issue. It took me by complete surprise this time around. It definitely did. But
so you got the name. You got the name.
Yes.
Asgaroth.
What?
Asgaroth.
Say again. Oh, Asgaroth. Yes.
Yeah. And you find out that it was Asgaroth is not actually the name of the Darkling Glory, but is in fact the name of a locust that was inhabiting the body of the Darkling Glory, and that is this like shadow creature with air and fire powers that has now been disembodied and is somewhere.
And is this what we learned when she had her Aaron's, of course, had her vision?
Yes.
Inside this this parallel dimension
In the Netherworld. Yeah.
In the Netherworld. Thank you. I forgot the name of it there. That was pretty eerie to consider. Especially I think there was a chapter that ended in her point of view, when she specifically she was wondering what it was or she had the feeling, at least the distinct impression, that somewhere something had found her dagger.
Yep.
And that definitely left a bit of a tingle in my spine there. I was like, ooh, that's creepy.
Yeah. So what do you guys think about Kellinor? Prince Kellinor.
Sorry, who?
Kellinor. Prince Kellinor.
Refresh my mind. This must be
King Anders' son. He's been traveling with Aaron Connell. They hooked up.
Oh, sorry, her husband.
Yeah.
Right? Husband.
Well,
yeah. Okay,
husband.
Sorry. The one who she's entangled with at the moment. I like him. He was the one who's had the deal with her in book 2.
Yes.
Was he not? If he could save her life, and then he did so twice. Did he not?
Yes, he did.
I was expecting him to be a little more of a wuss, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I'm pleasantly surprised, and I should say, just pleasantly surprised that those two are vibing as well as they are. I wasn't expecting that, but I do enjoy.
Yeah, Jarrod,
reading their scenes together.
I don't know. Personally, I still question his mental fortitude and ability to mainly confront his father. Which
of course
we can assume would be coming sometime soon.
Yeah. I mean, they are on their way.
I kind of thought that would happen in this book. Like, I honestly didn't remember that it didn't happen.
Okay, yeah, no, sorry. I just needed to double check. I need to shut my mouth. There was something I was about to say that again takes place early in the next book.
Well, depending on how early it is, I probably wouldn't be super offended on hearing.
No,
it,
I'm not gonna spoil anything for the next book for our listeners or for you guys.
Yeah.
But suffice it to say, they are on their way to meet with King Anders. And we got some interesting things with King Anders in this book. Honestly, he clearly has something going on with the air powers. And he has apparently this ability to send a plague of rats across.
I missed that.
Yeah.
Rats?
Yeah, there's the one night when he, because there's several scenes where he's hosting other lords and princes and things from across, and one of them, he goes up to the tower and he's thinking about disease, and he sends a plague of rats to go, because he's like, oh, you can fight armies, you can't fight disease.
Oh, that must have been one of those rare moments during the first half when I was nodding off and didn't rewind enough the next morning. Okay, no, I completely missed that. That's cool though.
Didn't he do this because the spell that he sent out with his assassins didn't work?
Correct. Yes. Yep. Yeah, because although poor Jareem gave his life, but
I was so bummed out about that. Jareem was my man.
Yeah.
I was really rooting for him after his whole his whole discovering of who he is and how to be a good servant and how just to follow his heart more than specifically his orders and serving Gaborn instead of Rajatan.
Yeah.
And I wanted him to have more than he got.
Yeah.
Let's just
he definitely got the short end of the stick.
I was bummed. I was like,
and
man.
And going off there, so how do we feel about Gaborn at this point? He's lost his powers. He's trying hard to regain them, but nothing seems to be working. He's doing his best to still follow the Earth's will, but
I don't have any particular beef with Gaborn in this book. He definitely he's honest. He's trying his best. He's there's no part of him even that's worried am I doing the right thing entirely? Well, maybe besides his whole kind of juxtaposition of his feelings with what he's doing to Averin.
Yeah.
But he's powerless, much more so in this book than even the first book. But he's still he's trying, and you got to give him credit for trying.
And he does get that one little piece of direction from the Earth to go find the Lair of Bones.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he still has one particular ability, right? He still has one. He can sense danger.
He can sense the danger, but he can't communicate.
No, right? But the ability to sense the danger is itself kind of a manifestation.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
is linked. So it's not totally severed, but it's definitely I don't know.
That's a key point to keep in mind, that he is still the Earth King, even though he's lost his powers. Mm-hmm. It's not entirely the Earth has abandoned him and is moving on. Like,
it just feels like the Earth is giving him the cold shoulder.
Silent treatment.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah,
it's just being peckish. I don't know, but
there's again, like with Gaborn, he learns some cool things from the Earth. He finds out that the one true master of the Reavers is recreating a large piece of the one true rune. He is binding the Seal of Desolation, which we saw in the last book, with the seals of the Inferno and the Heavens.
Yes.
And there is some there are some crazy problems happening because of this. There are constant earthquakes. Stars are literally falling out of the sky.
Yeah, I was wondering what was going on with that scene with the stars actually falling out of the sky.
Yeah.
I was like, what is this?
I think it's so cool. Like, it doesn't make any sense, but I think it's such a great image, you know?
Yeah, it was cool. It was definitely cool to read. I don't know. Specifically talking about Gaborn again, though, or at least, well, loosely about Gaborn and his failure to implement his Earth powers at this point. There was still a moment that I want to point out in particular with Iomi, when there was a moment when she was in mortal peril, and she begged the Earth. She directly begged the Earth for aid, and it acquiesced. It helped her out.
Yeah.
I am just going to postulate that this has something to do with the fact that she has Gaborn's son inside of her. But that's just an initial, very vague impression. Like, I literally have no other ideas as to why she received help in that instant.
Okay.
I mean, isn't Anders after her mainly because of her son?
Yes.
Yeah, the first off, okay, so the Darkling Glory claimed that it could smell a son in her womb.
Yes.
There wasn't there that air wizard, I forget what they're called, in the second book.
There was the Skylord, the Skylord. The Inkaran.
Was the Skylord one that mentioned being able to smell the sun on her as well?
Ooh.
I remember hearing that more than once.
Think
so. But I'm not sure who it was that said it, who else it was, rather, that actually mentioned being able to smell a sun inside her womb.
You may be right.
Or maybe it was just the same Darkling Glory that just kept returning.
It was... are you saying like one of the assassins who came through, like, wind-driven guys maybe said it? I don't recall.
It could be. I didn't write down the specific second moment that it happened. It was just like another, that's odd.
Okay.
But I don't know. Maybe a topic for a future discussion if we...
Sure. Maybe something to revisit.
It becomes more relevant, perhaps.
After the last book. And through all of this discussion about characters, though, we've neglected a big part of this book, and that is Raja 10. Our main villain.
Yeah.
We got a lot of him.
We got a lot of him, and I loved most of it. No, I loved all of it. I'm not going to say most of it. I hated reading Rajaten for the first two books. I really did. This book was a total turnaround in that regard.
Yeah.
It's more personal.
He had a few shining moments where I was like, am I rooting for him?
Yeah. Right.
So, am I? Hold on. Like,
I absolutely was.
I had to check myself inside a little bit. I'm like, why am I suddenly excited that he's kicking ass?
Well, he is like fighting Reavers, so you know.
But he's also fighting his own people the whole time. You know?
But he still makes that conscious decision, even though he's a marked man.
Yeah.
At this point, he still makes that conscious decision, of course, decision that he's the what is it? The Lord of Desolation. What was the title of that being that came forth that he just immediately left to go fight and save his people from?
The Lord of the Underworld?
Ended up being Lord of the Underworld.
Well, so they're basically, when they say the Reaver Mage, the Fell Mage in the Blood Mines is the Lord of the Underworld, they're assuming that it is the actual one true master of the Reavers, essentially.
In that moment, Rajaten did assume that, and without hesitation, he just started running. Immediately, like he just went to go fight it, and I thought that was kind of cool. That was very admirable, and his whole battle scene there at the end when he got to fight his way in, and he got to actually battle.
We'll revisit that when we get to favorite scenes here in a little bit.
Yes, we will. Good. Good.
But so going back to this idea of the journey, the book starts with Rajaten fleeing Karis, and he's he's struggling. You know, he just
He's
had
injured.
this like horrible battle. He barely survived. He's got all kinds of injuries, and he's healing, but he doesn't feel like he's healing right, and he doesn't understand what's going on. And he talks to the Flame Weavers, and they find out that yes, he still has all of his tens and tens of thousands of endowments, but he's missing one endowment of each attribute, and they are his original endowments.
Yeah, his key endowments.
His key endowments. And this is the result of Binisben's curse way back in the first book. And so Raja 10, despite...
That's where that came from?
Yeah. So Raja 10...
I was going to ask you that. Okay,
despite all these endowments, is dying. And this book is all about his journey to find out how he can get around this. And he's struggling with the same conflict that we're presented with in the first couple of books, where he has the capability and the potential to be a hero. He could be the hero of this story, but he makes the wrong decisions. And we go through this book where he's struggling. Sometimes he's making the right decisions, sometimes he's not. But we get to the end, and in a moment of desperation, he gives himself entirely to the fire. And that's how he gets around the curse. The curse is burned away, and Raja 10,
so is his
the Sun Lord, the everything, all of the imagery we find out his name meant like King of the Stars, and he's called the Sun Lord, and all this stuff, and
chillingly prophetic.
all of this fire imagery, all of this star imagery, and he arises at the end, Lord of Ash.
Scathane.
Yep.
Lord of Ash. Oh man, I was pretty mind f***ed in that moment. I really was. I had no idea what was happening. I was cool with it at the end just because it sounded badass, and I can see him being an even bigger threat now going forward. But at the same time, I was disappointed just because a small part of me was still kind of harboring a small hope that he was going to be the Earth's warrior.
Yeah.
Because of, I mean, just reading about his battle at the end that we're going to talk about later. I mean, in that moment, I was just like, okay, come on. Please let him be the Earth Warrior, because that was freaking cool.
Well, so many of his followers, too, seem to be asking themselves, why couldn't he be Earth King, you know?
Yeah. That was a moment I had written down there, too, that it seems that he has a little bit of jealousy, or I should say envy. He definitely has a lot of envy of Gaborn. And I definitely wrote that down as something I wanted to discuss, because it's a very character-defining moment, even with all of his endowments, all of his dedicates, all of his vectors, all of the power that he has. He still finds something wanting in his life. Of course, who knows how that's going to affect him going forward. He doesn't even have any mortal body of which to speak of, let alone to please. But, you know, I don't know.
Yeah, I think he's...
I'm very trepidatious.
To me, you know, his whole quest thus far is to become the sum of all men and sort of become more than human. And in his quest to become more than human, he loses his humanity.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, I guess you can't really become more than human without losing your humanity by definition, I suppose.
But so this is going back to something I said, you know, in one of the first episodes where I was talking about how Raja 10 is one of my favorite villains. And Rob, you were so confused by that. And I think I said back then, I was like, we'll revisit this after the third book. And I mean, this is it. He has such an incredible character arc. It's so compelling in this book. And it's also cool because it serves to give us a little bit of world building. It expands into the south. We get to see some of the Indopolis kingdoms and what life is like down there, and the cultures and you know, traditions and the militaries there, and we see like just how opulent, just how rich these places are. I mean, the Megasa, the capital of Old Intobal, is like has a population of millions. You know, and we think about what Raja 10 actually marched north to invade Rothhaven with in the first book was only like a couple 100,000 troops, and we find out back home he's got millions in his army.
That's a problem that I had, though.
Yeah. It's there's a little bit of that. The numbers are
they don't
huge.
add up. Like it's just not feasible to have. And this is something in particular. I had a big problem with Terry Goodkind during the Sword of Truth series. That he decides that, you know what, I'm gonna make an even bigger army, and they can just keep scaling larger and larger, and there's no problems involved. It's like, you can't do that. It's not feasible. It's not logistically sound to have an army of millions on the move. It doesn't work. You can't feed that many people.
And it is, again, kind of an issue with the tight time frame. Like, the fact that they gathered 3 million troops for this battle in, like, a day and a half.
Oh, I have it listed down here. I was incensed by this. Just how many troops and different units were listed in this one scene. Let's see if I can find it. This is a very, very long note file, by the way, since we're doing both halves of the book in a single episode. Let's see if I can find it here. Chapter 26 would be later than that. Mirama, or we're going to talk about Mirama.
Well, yeah,
later,
so I was going to say, while you're looking up from that, we should move on to Mirama and Borenson, because they're kind of the third major sort of plot line in this book.
Okay, can we just close off Rajatan right there then, because I just found it.
Oh, you got it? Okay, yeah, fire away.
Yeah, I got it right here. Okay, so my word for word in my notes here is, okay, Rajatan's army kind of just ruined the book a little for me. I hate it when authors just reach for bigger numbers than any other series, as if it somehow makes logistical sense to march 3.2 million troops and over 10,000 elephants over any stretch of land.
Yeah.
That's impossible. It can't. It took me out of the moment a little bit.
Yeah, that's fair. So we have it, the title of this book is Wizardborn, and Averin is presented to us as the namesake, and then we just covered the second of the Wizardborn characters in this book, where we find out that Raja 10, he's been serving fire all his life, and he ends this book becoming a full-fledged flame weaver. And we are moving on to Mirama and Borenson, who start off their arc where Mirama has just founded the Brotherhood of the Wolf, and Borenson has been castrated by Raja 10 and is dying, and Binisman heals him. He says, like, I can heal the wound, but you're not getting your balls back, basically. Like, and it's sort of
more or less.
It's played for jokes at certain points in the book, but it's also played as a really serious matter. Like, I mean, it's a big strain on their marriage. They have, of course, some really touching moments between the two of them, discussing what it means to love and respect and be devoted to your spouse. And there's some really heartfelt things there. But throughout all of this, the looming shadow is the fact that Borenson can't father kids anymore. And
he's lost his manhood.
But we get towards the end of the book, and they're riding through the bogs and the marshes, and they stumble across a Toth White, the shade of an inhuman mage, basically. And Mirama kills it. She kills the White, which should not be possible. But
she does. But she also killed the Darkling Glory, which shouldn't have been possible.
Also true. Also true. But in killing the White, she touched it. And touching a White is death. And so she starts going cold and starts dying. And Borenson is also, because he's touching her, it's kind of spreading to him, and he's delirious, and he doesn't have any endowments of stamina, and he's on his last legs too, and he realizes it's time to let it go. And
that was hard.
And he does what his tradition is, and that's, instead of burying bodies, they consign bodies to the water. And he puts Mirama in the creek, and he, in his delirium, stumbles on to the town, and he wakes up, and Mirama's in bed next to him.
Yeah. I didn't believe for a second that she was actually dead.
I thought it was a dream.
You thought it was... Oh, okay. See, that would have been a little more... If I had thought of that, I would have probably passed it off as that. Definitely, yeah. I was just... In that moment, I had just written down, I'm like, oh, okay, so she's not dead. When are we going to see her again? There's no way. Her character's not just going to end like that. It felt just too...
I don't know. The first time I read this book, I was floored. I was like, I can't believe Mirama just died. It killed me.
How old were you?
And then 2 chapters later, she's back, and you find out that she is also Wizardborn, and she is a water wizard.
And then Farland takes the time to point out to you how you missed all these little details.
Yeah. Well, okay, and let's be really honest here. The first time I read this book, I was in 7th grade. There's a lot of stuff that went over my head.
That's what I mean. Like, I'm sure if you were reading this book for the first time now, you would have picked up on that faster anybody else I know.
But so over the course of this book, there's the struggle between Mirama and Borenson, and what it means to respect, and what it means to have devotion to your spouse, and as the book goes on, they finally find that mutual respect and devotion. And at the end, or near the end, Binisman's spell finishes its work, and Borenson's balls drop.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, we kind of forgot basic, human anatomy there for a little bit, didn't we?
Yeah, right? It's easy. It's easy.
Balls don't just pop into existence, and then they just drop. It doesn't work that way, And I was very glad for him when it happened. I was like, okay, good, yes, very good.
If anyone's gone through the most shit in the last 3 books,
it's Borenson.
It's Borenson.
I'm 150% taking back everything that I said about him at the end of the first volume, and how much I hated him, because I really obviously grew to feel for the man, and I'm just glad that he got his at the end, literally. I suppose.
So where we leave off with them, they're about to head to Inkara to go try to find Dalen Hammer, actual.
I figured this would have been over already. They haven't even gotten to Inkara yet.
Yeah. So we have some things to look forward to in book 4 with them, but
sweet.
Yeah. So
Sweet.
I mean, it's crazy to think about just how much happened in this one pretty short book. Like, it's only 502 pages long. Like,
is it? I'm reading on audiobooks or audiobook
paperback. Like, this is not a long book, and it is just packed with plot and character development. And that's going back to my point earlier about how it has this weird place in the series as a book. It's a bridge in a lot of ways. It's not about a destination, because none of the characters really find destinations in this book.
Doesn't it feel kind of like part 1 of 2?
Yeah, like Gaborn, he gets his destination at the beginning of this book, and that's the Lair of Bones. He doesn't get there in this book, and Borenson and Mirama, they get their destination, and that's Ankara to try to find Dalen Hammer. They don't get there in this book. It's and Aaron Connell and Prince Kellinor, they get their destination. It's to go get King Anders. They don't get there in this book. Like, this is very much a bridge in a lot of ways, but it is still so full of development, and that makes it a better book, honestly, than I remembered. I remember when I read it when I was younger, feeling a little unsatisfied with it, and that may also be because when I started reading this, this was the most recent book out, and I thought it was a completed trilogy, and I read this and finished it, and I was like, whoa.
That would give me the same impression. It's like, that's where it ends?
Yeah,
just
and then
on our way to go to the Lair of Bones?
Yeah, Lair of Bones came out, like, I don't know, a couple of years later, and it does a lot of really cool things with the characters, and I appreciate that. I gave this book 4 stars, which I would not have given it before. If you had asked me 2 months ago, what would you rate Wizardborn, I would have probably said 2 or 3 stars. And after reading this, I'm like, oh, wow, actually, this is a much better book than I remembered it being.
Okay.
So.
Fair enough.
I found that it was decently wrapped up. I was satisfied with it.
Yeah, well, and that's the cool thing, is that the character arcs are completed. It's the external, like, plot level conflict arcs that are not. And that's why it worked so much better than I remembered, because when I was reading it, back in the day, I didn't really have much of a grasp of like, character arcs. And now that I've gone through, I have a lot more experience not only reading but writing books, and have a deeper understanding of what it means to craft characters, and seeing that on display here, it's like, this is the kind of stuff that he does with the characters in this book, are a lot of the things that my creative writing professors in college talked about. So
yeah, I mean, I think this will be. Yeah, I like this book more than the first 2. It could just be because I'm a little more familiar with the setting at this point. I'm a little less kind of trying to understand things. Things come a little more naturally to me now. It's like, okay, got you. I guess maybe it's because there's a little less overall explanation.
Sure.
Having to cover everything, the rules of the magic system, for example, those are kind of taken for granted at this point.
Yeah.
With the exception, of course, of the introduction of key endowments.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool. But looking specifically at the characters at where they are, obviously I feel that Gaborn and Averin were treated with the most character development over the course of this book, I think.
And Rajatan.
Rajatan. You cannot forget about Rajatan. God. And I see exactly what you're saying about how at the end of book 3, he is definitely a much better villain than he is at the end of book 1. Definitely. He's more threatening. He's more dangerous. He's lost a lot more. He's got more motivations now.
And he's also scarier because you've gotten in his head and you find yourself rooting for him a little bit. And you're like,
which makes you kind of question your whole moral compass, because if you think about it, this is a man who, in this same volume, burns thousands of his own people alive as a sacrifice.
Yeah.
That's horrifying. And how is it that in that same book we are also at certain moments kind of rooting for him?
Right.
It's kind of scary. It makes you kind of examine your own moral compass.
Oh yeah. Oh man, just say that, Rob. I can't wait till we get to the Acts of Cain.
To Acts of Cain. Okay, I thought you were gonna say something really bad's gonna happen in book 4.
Just that idea of like a book making you re-examine your own moral compass. Oh my gosh, heroes die. But we'll get to that. That'll probably be months from now, but we'll get to that eventually.
Sweet.
And anyway, I do think we should move on now to our favorite scenes here.
Sweet. I'm waiting for this.
Jarrod, you want to kick it off?
I've been waiting for this for over 2 weeks.
So are we just listing them off or what?
Just like 3 scenes. Like talk about like your 3 favorite scenes and why and what happened, of course.
So the 3 scenes for me were Aaron's sort of dream visit to the Netherworld.
Oh yeah, okay.
The second would be Rajatan's battle at the end, obviously.
Yeah, that was badass.
And I don't know, there was like I don't know if you guys would expect this third one that I'm about to pick, but I really enjoyed the minor scene that we got with Rajatan's dedicate, who decided to fight back and poison his fellow Vectors.
The head of the Black Queen.
With the poison in his chest set, which I really like chest.
Yeah, I knew you would like that, yeah.
So that scene just stuck with me because of that, but
that's pretty cool. He picked up the little what was it, the queen or the king?
Yeah, it was the Black Queen. The chest was called the head of the Black Queen.
Inside. Yeah, I was like, that's pretty cool. That's pretty
cool.
But
I think on another level, it's really interesting to see a situation where dedicates are fighting back against,
And a little thing, I don't know if you guys picked up on this, but that book, that The Sum of All Men opens with Sergeant Dre's getting gutted like a fish over the book. Yeah. That book was written by that guy who poisoned the dedicates. That was the Emir of Tulistan, and that's his book. It was his memoirs. So he's been fighting back the whole time.
There's some food for thought. Dang.
Oh, which, by the way, we never really...
I definitely did not pick up on that.
Yeah.
That made me think of a really quick sidetrack. We never really talked about Gaborn's realization regarding the days and their association with time.
Yeah.
Time Lords.
That's a good point, yeah, where there's this sort of postulation put forward that perhaps time is another of the sort of natural powers, and that the days have a deal
ingratiated themselves.
The Time Lords and all of that.
Yeah. As far as scenes go, so the other one was Erin's scene, which I kind of really appreciated her as a character in that, she kind of just throws herself into this place without really, there's really no reason for her to have this much courage to go into this kind of place, unknown.
Well, she doesn't physically go in.
Right, but, mentally, I guess.
Yeah.
It's still the same courage, I guess.
Yeah, I still wouldn't. I wouldn't. That would be a hard nope for me. I'm not going into any strange portal.
But as far as the scene itself, kind of like what Rob was talking about earlier, it was pretty visceral for me, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, especially how it ended. It's like she had the feeling that someone somewhere had found her dagger, or something maybe was the word that was used.
Mm-hmm.
That heebie-jeebies, man. Heebie-jeebies.
Yeah, and then as far as the third scene, I imagine we might be sharing this scene among the 3 of us as one of our favorites with Rajatan's battle.
Yes.
Holding his breath pretty much the whole time.
So that is one of my 3 as well. I just think the spectacle of it, ignoring the fact that it's pretty much logistically impossible, the spectacle of that battle is so cool. The layout of the Reaver Fortress, and Rajten has this just unbelievably massive army, and there's a fully formed Seal of Desolation that's wrecking all of the southern countries. The Jewel Kingdoms are all basically going to be under a famine for years. And Rajten leads the way into this pitch dark Reaver Fortress where the only things that glow are the runes on the mages. And he's doing this all with his breath held because the Seal of Desolation and the spell from the Fell Mage are, absolutely wrecking all of humanity. And although I will say something, to that point, he's holding his breath the whole time. He's not the only Runelord who attacks. He clears the way, and then a bunch of his invincibles come in. When they're in the room with the Seal of Desolation, one of his invincibles, I think it was Pusnabish, the leader of the army, he actually talks. So he wasn't holding his breath.
Well, you mean you don't have to inhale to speak?
Well, yeah, but if you speak, you're exhaling, and
you can't breathe anything in when you're exhaling.
Yeah, and I'm like that little bit.
You're calling BS on there?
That little bit there, I was like, I think he forgot about what was going on. Anyway, but it was still an amazing scene. I mean, he just absolutely destroys this Fell Mage.
I learned a new word in that scene.
Oh,
actinic.
Oh,
you know what
great
actinic
word.
Means?
Yes, I do.
That's awesome. I have it written down over here. I was like, I learned a new word. Actinic. It means relating or denoting light able to cause photochemical reactions, as in photography, through having a significant short wavelength or ultraviolet component.
Yeah, it's like super bright blue kind of electric sort of light.
Yeah. I saw that word and I was like, I have to look this up because I've never seen this before.
In fact, this is something like it doesn't quite fit that definition that you just gave, but I've heard welding, that the welding torch, that light as described as actinic.
Well, I have 14,000 hours of production MIG welding. Let me tell you, welding does produce a lot of ultraviolet radiation, and if you're not wearing adequate skin protection, you will get a sunburn. I have been welding.
So maybe it was actinic. Yeah, it really does fit
heavy. I have been welding in a heavy Canadian winter in like negative 20, 25 degrees, and still been walking around with my face peeling and my arms peeling.
Oh, that's
people are looking at me like, "Where the hell were you?" And I was welding all day today. Yeah. I have welder's burn. It's a sunburn, but it's caused by welding emissions. Yes.
Ooh. Well, okay, so that was my first scene.
Now you know.
And my second scene is kind of a random one. And it's actually when Iome is at the Courts of Tide and the towers are falling and the stars are falling. That scene, that whole 2-chapter span there where we finally get the description of the Courts of Tide was very vivid to me. I think it's a great set piece. It's such a cool idea for a city.
They're rich. They are loaded.
Yeah.
My God.
Yeah. And then the power of building all of this up, and in the span of a chapter, it all comes crashing down. And throughout that entire scene, Iome has her new days, who's inexperienced, and her body language is giving things away. You already know that King Anders has made a deal with Internook to sail down the coast and attack Mystaria. And now, wow, I almost just said Nynaeve. Woo!
About 4 months early on that one, are we?
Yeah. Iome is starting to figure out this is going to happen. As the towers are tumbling down, it's such a tense scene. It's so well written.
Yeah.
I mean,
aesthetically pleasing, that's for sure. It was
yeah, cool. That's one of those things I think would be amazing in a movie. There are a lot of things in this series that would make for great film, and that's one of them. And then my third scene
is, I think, something else that you and I have in common, if my suspicions are correct. It's
not the scene you're thinking of, I don't think, with Binisman.
Oh, we'll find out. Yeah.
No, I mean, that was a good scene, but I think it was just more like a character moment. It was actually that final little battle with the Reavers where High Marshal Scalbaron
Oh yeah, Scalbaron
rides to his death,
how did we
and
forget
we
to
get
talk
it
about
from
him?
Wagget's point of view. There are
Yeah.
some really touching moments when we get into Wagget's head as
Yeah.
this guy who had a a mental
Defect of some sort.
defect. Yeah. He couldn't remember things. He was slow. He wasn't and then he gets the endowment of wit. And he's learning all of these things for the first time, and the concept of death is given to him. And Scalbaron, the High Marshal of the Knights Equitable, one of the most powerful men in all of Ropehaven, takes him under his wing and hopes that Wagget will marry his daughter, who is also mentally deficient. And
now, sorry, did we know that right away, or did we not find that? Because I don't remember finding that out until Scalbaron's
the daughter
last charge about his daughter also sharing.
no,
the same
we do.
condition.
When Gaborn looks into his soul, he sees that he slept with his own mother and had he calls it an idiot daughter.
Oh, I just see. I don't recall that part.
So the
during
daughter
Scalbaron's
is
last charge,
inbred
I found
has
that out.
Developmental deficiencies because of that. But Scalbaron sees Wagget and recognizes in him a certain valor and a certain like richness of heart and caring, and hopes that he could understand his own daughter and could take care of her and someday marry her. And then Scalbaron goes off on this desperate charge and kills the last Reaver Fell Mage. And I thought that scene was really powerful.
Yeah, that was definitely one I had written down for consideration. Myself, like I just mentioned, I don't recall learning that Scalbaron had an idiot daughter. So in that moment, like I just figured Scalbaron was just making a whole bunch of crude jokes. He was just trying to be a jovial, likable guy, you know, and try to bolster Wagget's confidence. But then during that last scene, when he was on his final charge, what he knew would be his final charge, that he would probably never see his daughter again. And then in that moment, I learned that he had a daughter with a similar condition to Wagget. And for me, that moment hit so hard. Like, I have a little sister who's very special needs in particular. So maybe it's just because of that it really resonated with me quite a bit. But that was definitely a very heavy moment for me. And it was definitely written down in one of my scenes for consideration. Was that all three of yours, or did you just...
That was all three of mine, yeah.
Okay, because the third would have been the battle with Raj Otten at the end, in the Reaver Fortress. Yeah. Okay. So I'll go to my scenes then.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So, I share one scene obviously with the two of you, that being Raj Otten's final battle. I was just white knuckling it the whole time. I was sweating. I was going, wow, this is awesome. Go Raj Otten. Go Raj Otten.
Yeah.
But the other two scenes that I have written down were, number one, since we're still kind of on the subject, it was Wagget's first scene was the one that I had written down, because it was just so heartbreaking to read from his point of view, how he doesn't understand quite everything that's going on around him, how naive, how trusting he is, how he's perhaps being taken advantage of his whole entire life. And then he finally gets some semblance of humanity. He finally has somebody take him under his wing and say, hey, we're going to get you an endowment of wit so you can at least understand
the decision that lays before you.
These heavier decisions, exactly. And of course, later in the book, this scene is given a lot more weight with the fact that he's starting to comprehend what death means and what death is. So that, I would say, the first scene with Wagget, while he's still a simpleton, but he's struggling to understand, that one really resonated with me in particular. So that's my second of my favorite scenes. And my third, of course, was one that I'm still laughing about, and I just cannot get enough of, was Binisman in chapter, I think it was chapter 9. No, hold on. Whatever.
Early on.
It was his legendary savage insult towards Sir Prinholm, who was making fun of Borenson for being a eunuch, when he tells the man, in this valley, Sir Prinholm, I could plant a stick in the ground, and by dawn it would grow into a better man than you. I held my book. Actually, I wasn't holding the book. At that point, I was still listening to the audiobook. I was filling up a glass. I remember where I was. I was at the refrigerator filling up a glass of filtered water, and I went, oh! I put my hand over my mouth because I had a Bluetooth headset in. I was like, oh my God! And my little sister turned to me and she said, what? And I'm just like, oh my God, that was savage. Businessman is a straight up OG. He is hood as fuck. In that moment, I was like, God damn, that might be the most savage diss that I have read since Jasna Kolin dissed Amaram in Stormlight.
Oh yeah.
That was saying that was also on the same level of savage diss. Oh my God, I cannot get enough of Businessman just for that one moment. I mean, he was already, of course, one of my favorite characters, but that just solidified it.
I mean, we learned in book 1, he's not afraid to say whatever to whoever.
Yeah.
Oh my God, he is just he's so gangster. I love it. He doesn't. You cannot mathematically divide by the amount of fucks that he gives. You can't do it.
Oh man.
So yeah, that was my third of my favorite scenes. Was Businessman being a true savage and having the best diss I've read in years.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yep.
So
good ones.
I think we're getting pretty close to wrapping up here. We still have to do the final draft.
We do.
But before we get to the final draft, just like a kind of a housekeeping note, next week we will be doing all of Lair of Bones. Once again,
the entire thing.
We'll be doing the whole book in one episode. Just the schedule is working out like that, and so all you listeners can look forward to that. And then we're not quite certain what we're going to be moving on to after the Runelords just yet. But it is worth noting we will not be moving on to book 5 of the Runelords, Sons of the Oak. It's sort of technically the first book in a sequel series. It's not.
It's the first book of a new arc.
Yeah,
right?
a new arc.
Yeah.
There is a solid conclusion to Lair of Bones. If you're reading along with us for the first time, there is a solid conclusion to Lair of Bones. It is the ending of a series. So we won't be going on to Sons of the Oak after Lair of Bones.
No, not immediately. At least we could return.
Yeah,
to it, of course,
perhaps we'll return. You know, maybe if A Tale of Tales comes out this summer and finally wraps up the whole series, we'll revisit it down the road or something. But for now, we will be moving on to something different. Yeah.
Yep. So is there like anything else about the book in specific you want to get out of the way before we go on to the final draft? Because I have a couple things.
Oh, yeah. Just some final thoughts to wrap up? Sure.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Rob.
Okay, so to start, I thought it was pretty cool that there was that scene with the Stargazer who was talking to Iomi, and he informs her that due to their calculations and the position of the stars and where they should be at this time of year and all that yada yada, it appears that the planet has shifted from its orbit.
Yes.
And I thought that was awesome. I mean, that is some meta level stuff. And once again, sounds a little familiar, doesn't it?
Oh.
Just slightly.
Oh, that's something that's happened in another series I've read, I think. Maybe. Yeah. Maybe.
Something by an author who may have taken lessons from this man at one point.
Yeah, I think so. Possibly. I'm not gonna put that in stone.
Wait. Are you... Hold on a second here. You were really convincing about that. Do you really not have an idea what I'm talking about?
I am being blindingly sarcastic right now.
Oh my God, Drew, you nailed it, man. Oh my God, I bought that. Hook, line, and sinker, I took that. Holy shit. Okay, whew. We were going to have a little small discussion, Drew, if you didn't actually get that. Thank you. Okay. Oh, God. All right. Yeah, so that was really cool. Let's see here. Well, yeah, blah, 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 blah. Oh, there was something about Averin, too, that I had a little beef with. Just a small little nitpick. She mentioned, while they were looking for the Waymaker, she said, let's mark this one. If I don't find one that I feel better about, we'll try him. And just the way that was phrased, it seemed like it was awfully advanced for... she's 9, right? She's a 9-year-old girl.
Yeah.
It seems to show an inordinate amount of first off, vocabulary in grammar, and secondly, just that amount of forethought I don't know. To me, it seemed like something that no 9-year-old would naturally
There's a more
say.
adult kind of thing. I mean,
It's more of an adult way of thinking, or at least approaching that problem.
that's fair. I mean, she is educated as a Skyrider, as a messenger.
Mm-hmm.
But that is a fair. I think that's a fair thing to bring up.
Yeah. Feycald, anything you want to discuss about Feycald?
I
I knew right away what he was up to. I didn't buy it. Yeah.
Completely
Not even for a second.
unguarded.
Well, they weren't completely unguarded.
Guarded by the two most idiotic guards in the history of guards. I don't know.
How can you blame them? Like, there are 3 assassins riding with lightning charged lances in a tornado hitting the camp. Of course you're gonna go try to protect your king and queen.
Yeah.
It seemed like very uncaring for 20,000 or however many forcibles it is.
Yeah. Jarrod, do you have any other final thoughts?
No, nothing huge.
Nothing huge. I only have a couple of small ones. One of them was going back to what Rob was saying with Waggett and that early scene before he's gotten his endowment and he's going in to get it, and the guy who's just been taking advantage of him all his life goes with him and is trying to like be all smarmy and get the forcibles to sell him. And it was just so satisfying that the Chamberlain just saw right through the guy and shuts him down. He's like, yeah, you can leave now. Get out of here. You know?
Yeah, that was a win to read. It was like, that's right, you fucking scurry away.
Oh, it was very satisfying. Very satisfying
to read, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, and then I want to go back and touch on a couple of things. Since we're not going to be going on to the sequel series, I can talk about these a little more freely, but there are a couple of terms, like world-building things, that have come through in this book for the first time. One of them is Shadow World, where the in Erin's dream in the Netherworld, the owl calls her like a warrior of the Shadow World, and we later get this idea from Binisman that there used to be one true world, and when the great enemy shattered the one true rune, that also shattered all the worlds, and there are thousands and thousands of these shadow worlds, and we are reading a series that takes place on one of them, and that the Netherworld is the remnant of the one true world, and so we have the bright ones on the one true world, or on the Netherworld, who are like more perfect men. Everything in the Netherworld is slightly more perfect than it is in the world we're reading about, and it's a sort of plot element that shows up in the later books, as you know, where there's more interaction with the Netherworld and stuff like that. But that also plays into what's going on with the runes, with the seals of desolation and the Inferno and the heavens, and what the one true master is doing with those runes. So there's a lot of groundwork being laid pretty early in these books for the second Runelords series, and I think it's nicely done, because he does it in a way where it's like, oh, that's a neat little bit of world building, but it's not like a burning question for a reader.
I noticed that.
You know, so he lays the groundwork, but he makes it easy for you to end after Lair of Bones if you want to end there.
Yeah, because going forward, I will admit that's been in the back of my mind, at least to some degree, is, you know, how is Lair of Bones going to wrap up at as many questions as I currently have? I mean, not all of them are even related to one another, seemingly so. Yeah. But it's good to know that a lot of these things are going to be further explored in the sequential arc.
Yeah, and it's called the Scions of the Earth is the second
and
series.
this one is the Earth King, or
the Earth King series. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Good to know.
Yeah. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have as far as Wizardborn goes, other than just saying, yeah, I enjoyed it quite a lot more than I was expecting to. It was there are things that I'm going to take away from my own writing from this book that I never would have anticipated. Me
too. Words like actinic. I get to use that in my vernacular now. Yeah.
Yeah. But shall we move on? Final draft?
Hell yeah, we shall.
Reading your mind.
I'm going to be a little disappointing though, because I mean I'll come right out of the gate and admit that I didn't really over these holidays everything I somehow didn't have time to get to the grocery store and actually pick a thematically appropriate beer or just even a beer to begin with. So I've just been raiding the cupboards and finding what we have around the house, and helping me get by today has just been a simple, good old-fashioned trusty Captain Morgan.
Oh, fair enough.
Spiced rum with some Coke. That's all you need. Half and half. Neat. No ice.
That's a little Indopolis. I think they probably have some spiced rum in Indopol.
We'll go with that. We'll go with that. Yeah, I bet they do.
So Jarrod and I are drinking the same thing. We split a bottle of this. It is from Fremont Brewing in Washington.
Fremont.
This is one of the best barrel-aged imperial stouts you will find out there. It is called Dark Star. So it's a bourbon barrel-aged imperial oatmeal stout. And as you can tell by the name Dark Star, I am playing very much on the theme of Raja 10 in this book, who is the Sun Lord and the Star of Indopal, and he falls into shadow.
I thought you were making a reference to the stars that are quite literally falling out of the sky.
That is also fair. And dare I say it, perhaps David Farland was aware of the thematic tie-in there between Raja 10's arc and the stars falling from the sky.
Yeah. One can assume.
But yeah. So this beer is just fantastic. It's I think a 13.6.
God,
yeah,
damn.
13.6. It is a robust, smooth, just
I always
rich
love that word.
Bourbon barrel stout. It's so good. If you ever see it on the shelf, do not hesitate. It's not an easy beer to get a hold of, although it's getting a little easier now. They've increased distribution, but yeah, it is quite excellent. They also do a coffee variant and a spiced variant. I haven't tried the spiced one yet, but the coffee one's excellent too. So
answer me this, because for those who don't know, Drew, I'm not sure if we've mentioned this, Drew hails from Colorado, where they have a whole bunch of, especially in your hometown, a bunch of microbreweries. That's why Drew is a beer fiend. That said, I'm curious as to where exactly you're buying all these different beers. Is this something you can just get at the grocery store down there? Is there an actual beer store? Because I'm Canadian. We have to go to the beer store.
Yeah.
Or until recently, we could go to the grocery store. But that's
the grocery stores in Colorado are soon to be allowed. I think actually, as of 2019, I think they're now allowed to sell full strength beer.
Oh yeah! Happy New Year, everybody.
Yeah.
Happy New Beer. Boom.
But I mean, there are craft bottle shops in Fort Collins. There is one place, it just closed down about a year ago, unfortunately. It's called the Craft Beer Cellar. I got a lot of stuff from them. There's one like semi-famous liquor store here called Wilbur's that, I mean, it's massive, but they get all kinds of absurd beers from across the U.S. and they do big release events and stuff. But there are a couple of other smaller ones that get stuff like Dark Star and they don't even put it on the shelf. It sits in the back, and they only let good customers know about it. Essentially, they get it in very limited quantities. I think the place I go to, if you're ever in Fort Collins, Colorado, and you want beer, check out Fish's Liquor.
I'm gonna be heading down there sometime.
They are phenomenal customer service, but they get like maybe 6 or 8 bottles of this stuff in. So if they put it on shelves, it would disappear in an hour, and they will keep it in the back. And but yeah, there's quite a booming craft beer industry in Fort Collins here. So
sweet, yeah, definitely something I have to check out when I do visit on some day that will definitely happen.
Yes, it will. Yes,
definitely. Well, unless anyone's got anything else to add, I think that wraps up. This is episode 9.
Episode 9,
Out Loud podcast. Yeah, we're on double digits next episode, ladies and gentlemen.
Whoa, not ready for that.
Mind blown, right? Definitely.
Yeah.
We've been doing this for like 3 months already, because there was 2.5 weeks. Because if we were doing every single week, this would be week 9. But we also had like a 2.5 week intermission there too.
We started on your birthday, right? Which was late October.
Oh no, good point. Touche. October 27th. So this January 1st. Yeah, no, you're right. It's been 2 months and 3 days, something like that.
Yeah,
Awesome.
obviously all of you are listening to this far in the future from now.
At this point, at least 2-3 months in the future.
Yeah, we kind of decided to build up a bank of episodes just because we know schedules won't allow us to always record every week, and we would like to have that buffer so we can
to make things
continue giving you content every week.
For our resident engineer. Shout out once again to Patrick. We got to get him on. When is Patrick coming on?
Ooh, whenever we do probably Black Company or Kane.
I thought he's read Runelords.
He has read Runelords, but he's not the biggest fan of it. He is right here. Pat, do you want to chime in?
Yeah. So I did read the Runelords a while back for our book group at the time. And while it might have been interesting to have a voice of dissent, might be a little too strong of a word, but at least not as into it as you guys are on the podcast. I haven't read them for a while, so my comments would be less than useful.
Fair enough.
Well, I mean, yeah, there are things specifically that I'm not liking about these books, and I'm planning on going over that once we're at the end of book 4. I have actually been sitting on.
I have
a few.
I think I'm in the same boat as you, Rob. There are a couple of major structural things with these books that prevent them from.
How about we set aside like a 10-15 minute segment for after the next episode?
Series review.
Yeah, series review. Sure.
Yeah, airing grievances. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, in the Festivus spirit.
Sure. Okay, sounds good. I think that's a wrap, everybody.
Yeah, I think it is. So once again, thank you for listening. We hope you come back next week as we wrap up the Runelords Earth King series with Lair of Bones.
Yeah, we do.
Goodbye.
Have a good one, everybody.
Bye, everybody.